During this class, we're going to cover the basic side control. So we're going to talk about the sideways side control. And we're going to cover 2 basic escapes from that position. Very important class. It's important to get a good position before we attempt the submission. So you just think about the submission like the arrow, and the position is the bowl. So we don't want to have good submissions without good positions because they're not going to go anywhere. All right? They're going to fall short of your goal there. So we're going to start with our positioning on the side. First thing, when I'm here, I want to make sure, as usual, that I'm as slow and as tight as possible. So if I'm going to stay on both knees, that's not going to allow me to be as low as possible. If I stay with both legs extended, I'm giving him too much room. So I got to compromise here. What I will do is one leg will be bent, the other leg will be extended. So I'm going to have the leg that's closer to his legs always bent. Now, why is that? Because he will attempt to shrimp away from me here to get this knee in. Right? So it's a good idea not to allow him to do that by keeping that knee close to the hip bone. My left leg there will be extended, fully extended. So not only I'm lower, but I'm also heavier. Now, let's look at it from this angle here so you can see the position of my arms. So once I'm right here, what I will do here as far as the arm positioning, my right arm will be controlling his hip, and I'm going to bring my forearm like a bar across his belly. My elbow is down. I'm squashing his hips together, bringing his hip here in towards my knee with my hand. This side here is probably the most important side as far as upper body goes. My shoulder is driving into his face, and I'm forcing James to look towards his left side, just like I do in the mounted position. This guarantees me that he will try to escape towards that side. This is a huge advantage, and it should not be overlooked. Always heavy with your shoulder here. Now your back is arched, but that does not mean that my neck should also be arched. I'm opening up here so I can talk, but if I do that in a fight, he's going to attack my neck. The most important thing for him to control from the bottom is the neck. So I will not give that away for free like that. Once he gets a hold of the neck, we're going to see that when we talk about escapes, he will be able to move me away and escape out of that position. Instead, what I want to do is bring my ear against his chest, and I'm looking away towards his legs. And this is a good side control position, sideways side control. Now, once we teach the students a good sideways side control, we need to also teach them how to escape that situation. And it's where it becomes tricky. So let's now cover the escapes from side control. The first one will consist of bringing my opponent back to guard. So the first thing I need to determine here is what my proper stance is. What is my defensive stance? Once again, whenever I'm talking about escapes, the first thing that comes to mind is defensive stance. Before I start working towards my escape, I got to defend myself, prevent an easy submission here. So the proper stance here, it's all about my arms. My right hand will go underneath my opponent. So my elbow just dives under so I can bring my right hand towards his hip. Now, on this side here, my left hand is going to come across his neck. Very important for me to get control of the neck. Now, sometimes my opponent will not cooperate, and he's going to have his head low here. That's when I'm going to have to use my elbow to brush down into the head so I can get where I want with my hand. Very important for me not to do something like this, where I'm trapping my arm there, and I allow him to get me in an arm triangle. If I do this brushing motion with my elbow, I must make sure that I'm brushing with the elbow against the top of the head, not close to the base of his neck. Once I get my hand right there, I'm using the blade of my left hand against his neck, and I'm ready to go. This is my proper defensive position, always with the chin tucked in. All right? Now, once I get to this position, the next step will be my shrimping motion. Very important. I need to shrimp, and I'm going to shrimp towards the camera. As I do that, I'm going to try to accomplish full extension of my arms. So it's a strong shrimp. I should not do a half-hearted attempt here. I got to give everything I have in this first shrimp. It's very important for me to keep shrimping until I have enough space to escape. So right here, shrimp, and now you can see that I lock my joints here. This is especially important against somebody that's extremely heavy, just like a bench press here. It's easier to hold in a locked out position than it is to, keep the bar right here in the middle. So I want to hold this out. I don't want to stay here forever though, because I'm extending my arms, giving my opponent options here to attack. So as soon as I get the space here, I'm going to bring my bottom knee, so my right knee in this case, through. And now I'm going to keep shrimping and put him back into guard. There are many ways of finishing the shrimping here. One of them is to bring my left foot inside his legs, so I can use this as a fulcrum to pivot and get him back into guard. All right? Another way is to start right here, shrimp away, get his knees extended, throw one knee under, and just shrimp. So I shrimp and I push with my right shin there against his body, accomplishing the same thing. Let's take a look at the escape again. I want to make sure that I'm controlling the neck and I'm controlling the hip. And now I'm going to push away and shrimp. As I do that, I will now bring the bottom knee in so I can keep moving him back to guard. Do not stop shrimping until your opponent is inside your guard. That is very important. Now, for the next escape, I'm going to go to my knees. So my opponent gets there. As usual, the first thing to think about is good defensive stance. So I'm going to tuck my chin in, bring my hand on the neck, bring my hand on the hip, and I'm ready to go. I'm going to start this the same way as before. A strong shrimp with full commitment, moving away from him, trying to extend my arms. Once I do create that space, I'm ready to move on to a new escape. So all the way until here, we're talking about the same move. When I get to this position though, things get a little bit more complicated because not only I want to escape side control, but I want to end up on top. I want to get to the turtle position, and from there, I want to take him down. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to require an underhook for this. And I must make sure that when I shoot this underhook, it's a good underhook. Meaning, if he gives me a little bit more pressure there, I'm not going to shoot something that crosses right here because that's not good. Once he does that, he will either get a Bravo choke or he will simply squash me and prevent my escape. Alright? Instead, when I get to this position here, the underhook that follows is a strong underhook with my forearm parallel to the mat, my elbow pointing up and not downwards, like so. Now, watch my legs. I'm going to chop my legs here. So I cross them in the opposite fashion. They were right here. I'm going to cross and I'm going to plant that left foot on the ground. Very important to plant that leg on the ground so I can drive off that foot to get enough power to be able to escape from somebody that's heavier than me. So right here, if I don't drive off my legs, I will not be able to do this. It might work against somebody that's 130 pounds. It would not work against somebody that's 230. So from here, I'm going to go into what I call the tripod position. Push off that left foot and off your right toes into the tripod. As the name implies, there are 3 points here. Toes, toes, and my right shoulder. Once I get to this position here, I'm not going to drop to my knees right away. I'm going to drop to the side. It is important to notice that I did not try to roll on my belly and then come to my knees. If I do that, I'm going to be squashed like a bug, especially if he's stronger than me. I got to make sure that I keep that belly button off the ground. So I have my underhook. I cross my legs. I'm going to push up that leg, get to my tripod. Then and only then, I'm going to drop to my knees. As I drop to my knees, you can see that I move, so I'm now perpendicular to my opponent, and I got control of the near leg here. Now, I can go and tap the far knee and drive and finish with a double leg. Let's see that again. He starts with a good side control. Put my hand right here. Put my hand right here. I'm going to move away, shrimping and extending the arm. Underhook on this side. Cross the leg. Blend that foot on the ground. Drive off your feet into the tripod position. Very strong, very solid. Now drop to your knees, coming perpendicular to my opponent right here. I can even commit to wrap this leg here if I want to. Otherwise, I'll just keep it, kind of loose on the outside. All right? Doesn't matter. Depends on, once again, it depends on what he does there. Now I'm going to drive forward. My shoulder drives forward. My head, like a battering ram against the side of his ribs. And I tap the far knee to escape from side control and get the top position. Now we're going to cover side control position, the sideways side control. So sideways side control, the first thing we need to discuss here is that I cannot make the classic mistake of controlling the head only. So this is very normal and very common in judo, but it should be avoided at all costs. What I'm talking about here is this is normal side control. Sideways side control is when I move to the side here. Now the worst thing I can do here in jiu-jitsu is this. What I'm doing here is kezigatami. So if I'm controlling the head here only, all right, or even use the pillow variation here, this is not good for me. Why? It isn't good for me because he will be able to easily shrimp out of this position here, and if I lose the head, I lose my opponent and he will get the back easily. So it's very important to emphasize the fact that you should never, never control the head alone. Now, if I cannot control the head, how would I be able to do sideways side control? I'm going to do what I call kazuri kezigatami. Actually, that's the common term in judo, which means broken side control. And what is broken for them, it's optimal here because I have the underhook on the far side and that prevents him from shrimping and escaping towards the back. So I'm going to start and demonstrate the transition from regular side control into sideways side control. I start with regular side control and we covered that in a different class. From here, what I need to do here is get a no underhook here on the far side. So make sure you're not going over the arm because you're going to end up in that position that is bad for me, kezigatami. So get the underhook on this side. I don't need to grab anything. It's perfectly fine if I just place my hand on the mat. Now, the transition will take place with my legs. Now, my right knee is glued to his right hip bone right now. What I will do instead is that I'm going to come up a little bit so you can see that I'm using my left toes here so I can move my right knee instead towards his shoulder. Right shoulder now. I'm opening up here. This is not the way this should be done. I'm doing this to talk to the camera. The way that this should be done is for me to have my ear glued to his chest here. I'm controlling the arm near the elbow. You don't have to grab the gi for this. I'm keeping my ear low and I'm keeping this underhook tight. This is kazuri kezigatami, sideways side control. So what we work on here, after teaching the basic sideways side control position, we're going to work on one submission from this situation and one escape from this situation. So keep your ear always glued to his chest here. Now the attack that we're going to use here involves sliding my grip from the elbow to the wrist so I can now move that wrist down. Alright? Now, I don't want that arm to be stretched. Why? Because if I stretch it, it's going to be very easy for him to counter and escape this technique. Now, what I'm looking for actually is to get that arm bent in a way similar to the Americana lock. So I'm going to push that wrist down, and now I'm going to try to cover that wrist with my calf. As I do that, I push this wrist even further towards his head. So this is the angle that I'm looking for. I do not need to triangle my legs. If I want to triangle my legs, that's perfectly fine. Go ahead and do it, but that's overkill in my opinion. What is a good idea, though, is to make sure you're controlling under the neck, because this guy will try to bridge. And by doing this here and getting a gable grip and being heavy, you prevent a lot of his bridge and escapes here. The next step will be to raise your hips off the ground and slowly drag that right leg through the gap. So it's almost like standing up to base. You got one foot on the ground, you got the opposite arm on the ground as well. I'm going to raise my hips, drag the leg through the gap. So right here, and if I want to do this, this is even better. Raise your hips, drag the leg through the gap. Very careful when you execute this move because it's extremely powerful. I'm in sideways side control. I slide my grip from the elbow to the wrist. I'm going to push that down and cover with a calf. Do not be satisfied with something like this, right? This will slip out. I don't care if you have a triangle or not, it's not going to work. So make sure that you're pushing that towards the face. Then you come with a calf on top. Now, I'm going to plant my foot on the ground. If I want this here, that's great. Extra safety for me. Glue your head right there. If you don't have it, it's still going to work. All right? This is just, like I said, safety. Now you're going to raise your hips off the ground and slowly bring this leg back. Without his arm, so you can see and I can exaggerate the movement, what I'm doing there is raising and dragging back through that gap. As if I was trying to switch back to sideways side control. Now, let's take a look here at the escape from sideways side control. Once he gets me in that position, if I could pummel, I will take the pummel. That's the basic way of escaping this. So if for whatever reason his underhook is not strong and I can pummel, that's great. Now I'm going to have to deal with a Kizigatami, which is a much simpler position to escape. I can simply go to the back, start shrimping, get the hook in him if I'm very flexible. I can roll him over. I can frame the head much easier. So it's an easier position to escape. Sometimes though, he did it well. He did a good job there. His head is low, and now I have to battle out of this situation here. So what is the first thing I must do? Get into good defensive stance. So I'm going to try to bring that arm a little closer if possible. I'm going to try to bring this arm a little closer if possible. I'm going to tuck my chin down. After I do that, the next step is always to control the most important part in your opponent's body, which is the neck. So once I get a control of that neck, and it might be a warlip here, it might be, something like this here, where I'm shrimping, and I finally get it in. I don't care what it takes. I don't care if you have to bribe the guy on top, but get that hand against the neck. Once you get the hand against the neck, you're all ready to go. Now what I would do there is shrimp away and push with this arm. Be careful. Don't, just let this one dangle in here because he might still attack you with your Americana. So, make sure that he's not attacking that one there. If you want, some people prefer to do this here, which is called framing. All right, if you frame, that's fine. You can do that. Doesn't do much for me. I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't do much for me here. If you have a powerful grip here, it's all it takes. Shrimp away and start applying pressure against the neck. Once you do this here, now, I am flexible, so I don't need to exaggerate this motion. If I wasn't flexible, I would really have to push away hard. Once again, it's that balance between power and flexibility. If I'm more powerful, I'll be able to push him further out, and I'm going to need less flexibility. If I'm very flexible, normally, I have, less power. That's fine. I will compensate by being able to bring my leg over the top. Now, once I get this leg over the top, what I will do is, as I'm pushing down here against his head, I'm going to slide my elbow down. Now, I can get an arm bar here, which is this here, just arching back until I get the tap. It's a good attack, but it's a difficult attack to finish. If I miss the arm bar, it's not the end of the world. So if I do this here, and this guy, rotates the elbow somewhat, that's fine. I'm going to keep kicking this down here. I'm going to grow towards the top position here, getting to north-south. Then I'm going to take my time here to attack with something that's a little bit more solid. So let's see that again. You get sideways side control. First thing, defensive stance. Second thing, get that hand right there on the neck. I did both at the same time. Awesome. Now I'm going to shrimp away and push the neck to create the space. throw the leg over. If you can't get the arm bar, good for you. If you cannot get the arm bar, I'm going to keep pressure there with the leg so I can roll and get to this position. And now I'm going to battle. You can't see it from there, but I'm actually pinning his far arm down there with my left knee. This allows for me to be able to isolate this arm and finish with whatever I want. In this class, we're going to cover a different type of side control, the inverted side control. We're also going to cover transitions from the side control to the mount. Let's start with a basic transition from side control to the mount. I'm going to establish sideways side control on my opponent. Right knee always close to his hip bone, left hand underneath his head, and my hips are low. Remember, keep your chin down. I'm just lifting my head to talk to the camera. Now, once I establish this position, the next dominance here as far as positioning will be to establish a good mount. The way I do transition from the side control to the mount is by sliding my knee forward. It's very important to pin your opponent down while doing so. I'm going to get control of his belt here. And I'm going to use my forearm like a bar across his waist, bringing my right elbow close to his right hip bone. My left hand will come inside his gi so I can place my thumb inside, and I'm pretty much trying to staple my opponent to the ground. Once I get to this position, I'm going to come up on my hands as if I was executing a push-up, and I'm going to bring my right knee across his chest. Unlike a knee in the belly position where I would stop here and try to actually get my points here, I can transition right away to the mount. Now, right now is where I need to establish an underhook. I can get that underhook earlier if I want to, but at this point it is required that I try to get one. Now, this underhook here will open a gap, and I want to make sure that I'm going to slide my knee all the way to the ground like so. I do not want to try to bring my right foot across before that knee actually touches the mat by his armpit. The reason behind this is that if I try to move my foot across while the knee is still here, my opponent will trap it. And now I'm going to have to deal with this low half guard situation. In order to prevent this, I'm going to go ahead and slide the knee forward all the way. Then I'm going to move my foot this side while maintaining a good underhook position there. If I lose the underhook, it means my opponent will be able to push against my knee, and it's going to be extremely hard to get the situation. Let's see it again. I start with a solid side control. I control the belt, and I control the head. Or I can choose to control the underhook and the head. But make sure that somehow you're stapling that guy to the ground. Once that knee is up, I must switch to the underhook no matter what. Now, if I don't and I try to slide that across, James will come with his left hand and block my passage. So get that underhook out of the way. If he tries to fight it, I'm going to walk with my hand slowly on the mat to open that up. Slide the knee to the ground, mount, and that's the way to go. The next transition to the mount will require another type of side control, inverted side control. It's very important to execute the side control properly. If you mess up during this technique, your opponent's going to be able to reverse you easily. We're going to start with the regular side control position. After I get regular side control here, in order to transition to inverted side control, I'm going to use my left knee, and I'm going to bring my left knee where my right knee is. Now, after I do this, it's extremely important to maintain two things here. Number one is a good base on my right side by planting that right foot, the far foot. I don't want this far foot just the heel on the ground or just the toes on the ground. I need it to be flat against the mat surface. I also need to be extremely heavy with my left shoulder against his neck and chin. Why? Because once I transition into this position, it's very easy for my opponent to try to bridge and come my way. If he bridges, I must be able to execute a counter by pushing off that right foot. If I have no base, if I have both legs close to my opponent, he will bridge over and he will establish stop position. So make sure you always have a good wide base on that side. Once I get this position, there are a couple of ways I can execute a transition into mount. You can keep that shoulder in front of his head and simply step over if you're dealing with an opponent that's a big beginner. While doing so, you always scoop the arm to make things easier. Like so. Or, if you prefer to be more stealthy about it, I switch into inverted side control, and then I can get this sort of grip here. Over the head, I'm hiding his head from view, and he will not be able to see or observe exactly what's going on here near his legs. This is especially important against a guy that tries to do this here to block my way into the mount. If he does that, I won't be able to just take a big step and get my mounted position. What I will do instead, I'm going to try to be very stealthy, very sneaky about it. So I'm going to get control of my own foot. So I'm grabbing my own foot here. I'm going to bring it in. And right now, I start to tense up my foot. I'm trying to extend my leg. The only thing that's keeping my leg from extending is that grip on top of my foot. When I'm here over the top, that's when I'm going to let go and explode into the mount. Like so. This is a great transition and a very easy way to obtain the mount. So now we're going to cover the starting position. Normally when sparring inside the school, we start from our knees. So the first thing that the student must learn is how to follow up on that. So we will be starting here on our knees. After bowing, we shake hands, and we're going to start assuming our normal stance here. Well, this has to be taught. It's not something that comes natural. The way that I want to, place myself here is have one leg that always leads. Normally people will lead with the right leg, and that knee is up. Now, the other leg here will be bent underneath me. I'm pretty much sitting on my left foot here, but what I'm not doing is putting it at a complete 90-degree angle. All right, those legs are not perpendicular to each other. What I'm doing is tilting it a little bit, so my left knee is at an angle, pointing this way here. As far as my upper body goes, I don't want to stand upright. I want my upper body to be bent forward, and I bisect this angle here, and that's the position that will give me the most balance here. As far as my elbows, I want the elbows tucked in. My palms are slightly down, and this knee here acts like a shield. So whenever I'm fighting here and he attacks with something, I'm going to be able to hide behind this leg here. It's very important always to approach open guard in this stance. Now, when we both start, after we bow, we're going to assume our basic stance. This is the time where it's going to be determined who will fight from the top position and who will fight from the bottom position. There are a couple of moves here that you can use to guarantee that you're going to be on top, or to guarantee that you can switch directly into a submission. The first one is the ankle pick. In order to apply the ankle pick, I'm going to get closer to my opponent, and I'm going to place my forehead against his shoulder, right here. Now, once I do that, at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and use my left hand to control behind his ankle. So pretty much controlling his heel, right here. With my right hand, and you're not going to be seeing this from this angle, I'm going to go ahead and tap that knee to prevent him from basing out. I don't want to turn this into a war here. This is something I want to avoid. I want to hit him with the ankle pick and finish the move as soon as possible. I will also try to transition smoothly into the knee trap position so I can finish with a pass. So right here, forehead to the shoulder on the same side of the leg that's up. Hand on that heel. Now I'm using my right hand here against his knee. I'm going to drive forward, taking him to the ground, and I get to the knee trap position. I can keep my left hand right here, or I can shoot it on the inside, which is even better and safer. So it will depend on his reaction, but the important thing is that I took him down, I assumed the top position, and I'm ready to go. Let's see that from a different angle here. So I'm here with my opponent. We both have right leg leads, and it's important to train this for both sides because sometimes my opponent might lead with the left. I'm going to close the distance. I don't want to overreach with this or with anything else. Once I close the distance, I'm ready to hit the move here. My forehead will come against his shoulder, hand behind the heel, and now you can see the detail here of my right hand. It will tap the knee. Once I start applying pressure, his back will move towards the ground. That's when I need to open enough room to get to the knee trap position. So right here, here. Controlling the situation, and once again, I'm ready to hit my knee trap pass. Excellent setup. Gives me a huge advantage from the starting position. The next technique that we're going to take a look at, it's a modified judo throw from the ground. So we covered the osotogari throw from the stand-up position. I can also utilize this throw on the ground at a very low level without breaking the sparring rules. Normal safety rules require that while he's on his knees, I cannot stand up. Why? Because if I do stand up, he will stand up. Then we're going to start fighting for throws while other students are around sparring on the ground. So to keep it safely, I'm only allowed in any gym to fight from a standing position when, he's fighting from his guard. So he's already inside his guard. So let's try to teach our students not to stand up here. If you want to spar standing up, there's a time and place for that. If we're sparring on the ground, we got to make sure that we follow those safety rules. Now, once we get to this position here, I'm going to control this time the arm on the same side of the knee that's down. So in this case here, I'm controlling James's left arm. I can control here, but I normally prefer to control near the elbow. That gives me a little bit more of a better angle and a little bit of power here while pulling that arm out of the way. This hand here will come towards the back of the neck. I can simply control a head tie here, or I can use my thumb inside the collar. Now the step that I will take will always be to the side of the knee that's down. Now I can execute this throw to both sides. I can do it when he has, from my right lead, I can do it from when he has a right lead, or I can do it for when he has a left lead. So we're going to cover both situations. On this side here is the most difficult side because I'm going to have to step up and use my left foot, the one that's underneath me, to control that knee there. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to control here and control on the head. Now, from this position here, I'm going to squat. So I'm going to sit up a little bit here, but in a very fast way, I'm going to place my left foot by his left knee. Here. Now, once I hit this position, all I got to do is bring my arm down, and as I pull this arm in, which will force for him to pivot here, land in this situation. Now, you can see that for a little bit there, my butt was off the ground, but at no point I'm locking my knees out. At no point I'm fully standing up. And that's the difficult one. The other side will be much simpler. So right here, watch my step. I raise up so I free my left foot out of there, and I'm going to put that foot down. You can plant the foot if you want, but it's a little bit faster, a little bit better to do something slightly different. And I'm going to show you there, just to place the ball of my foot there. So from here, I'm going to place the ball of my foot there. Heels were off the ground as I do the move. Very smooth transition, must be executed way faster. Everything that we demonstrate here, it's in a slow motion, so to speak, so you can capture all the details. Now, let's consider that we're facing here and he has a left lead. So right now we have different leads. I'm leading with my right leg up, he's leading with his left leg up. This is really where this technique will shine. Why? Because the step that I need to take right now is my right foot towards his right knee, which doesn't require for me to step with this leg here. So it's a faster transition. I still control the head, I still control the elbow the same way. But watch, The stab is much shorter, much more natural. I stab here, and I apply the pressure. He will rotate with me. Whenever I land in this position here, I want to score with the knee on the belly. I don't want to stay in this situation here, but I want to make sure it's a full knee on the belly. And I want to extend that arm up because it gives me a great opportunity to apply the arm bar. So once again, he has left lead. Come right here. Come right here. All I need to do is do this here, and I got the takedown from my knees. The last technique that we're going to work on today is to snap down into a guillotine choke here. All right? I can use a guillotine choke with my gi, or I can teach the guillotine choke simply with, my arms. So the way that I'm going to do this here is first starting by getting a snap down. So when I come right here, I want to break James down. The easiest way to do that is to get a head tie. You can do it also by controlling, just moving here, controlling this collar here. But it's easier not to rely on the gi. So I'm just going to go with a head tie, pull him down, and break him down. So he faces me again. We're facing each other here. I'm going to control right here. If I want to add some pulling motion with an inside tie, I can as well. Mine goes to break him down to his knee. So I'm going to pull forward and break him down. As I broke him down, I need to move back a little. I don't want him crowding me. And once I get to this position, I must decide what I'm going to do. I could execute a go behind, but the whole idea today here is to execute a guillotine. So I'm going to come with my right hand, and we're going to open this up a little bit. Right hand around his neck. All right? Now I can do a gi and a no-gi version. If I want to execute it without a gi, I'm going to come right here so that my thumb barely clears his jaw. I'm going to stay on top heavy. I'm going to control my own hand. I'm going to slide my knee forward, and now I pull down. As I pull down, this is a pivotal point here. I cannot let this guard open with a guillotine. I must make sure that I throw my left leg on top against his back. Why? This prevents his guillotine defense of jumping to the side. Now, I'm going to choose my guillotine finish, and we're going to go into detail later. Just for now, just go ahead and squeeze, elbow in, and arch your back to get the tap. Now, if I decide to use a gi finish for this, it's very simple. It's actually a much better choke. If he's wearing a gi, all I got to do is, instead of snapping him down, controlling the head, I can snap him down, controlling the collar. So I will control the collar across. So I don't want the left collar here. I'm going to go with my right hand against his right collar. Now I'm going to snap that man down. And as I snap him down, I circle that collar around his neck. If we open this up and we tilt it a little, once I snap him down, and I don't want to grab too deep with this, I want to make sure that I'm grabbing not here, but this height here. I'm going to wrap around this way, making sure always that this area of my hand is in touch with his neck. I don't want the collar to be choking, but my hand to be choking him. After I do this here, so let's go back to the starting position here. Once I snap him down, I'm going to follow through by bringing my shoulder down between his shoulder blades. Now, I can simply pull here until I get the tap, or I can still pull guard with it. So drive the knee forward, always driving the knee forward, fall back, and now all I got to do is with one arm, I can do the same thing as before. Get in the tap. Once you got this choke, it's such a powerful choke that I could even drive forward and pass his guard with it. But that's something that we're going to cover later. And that about sums it all for, this techniques from the starting position.